Hello, lovely people. I'm Nicola. I'm back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room. I had an entirely at-home day yesterday when I planned to be fairly productive in the sewing department, and I think I was. So I'll show you what I made yesterday and also show you the bag that I had intense struggles with, because I did finally get it to a point where I'm happy with it. So that's awesome. First, I want to show you I've done some dyeing. I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, but I posted a reel the other day. My sewing room, I had vacuumed it in the morning. I deconstructed some jeans in the evening, and yeah, let's just say it was a disaster in here. And then yesterday I went and sewed with some fuzzy fabric, some chenille, and it was even more of a disaster. So it was like a Yeti had a fight with my fabric in a snowstorm or something like that. It was bad. So I have this pile of jeans that I wanted to sort out because I wanted to make some tote bags, and that uses a fair whack of fabric, like a single piece that's say 17 by 15. And also wanted to unpick a bunch of pockets off any jeans I had where I still had that part of the jeans. There were about 8 or 10 pockets in the end by the time I had picked away for what seemed like hours. And I have some of the little side pockets, you know, the front of your jeans, sort of the little tiny coin pockets. I have a couple of those, but I haven't decided what to do with them yet. Once I had figured out what I had, gone through all of the denim, I had a couple of pairs, maybe 3 pairs, which were a bit stained, and I didn't think I could really use them. But I did also have some Rit dye. And I had a basic Rit dye, not the synthetic one, but the one that does cotton and wool and nylon and silk, I think. So there's 2 kinds of Rit. One is the basic one, which does sort of more natural fibers, and the other one is the dye more, which does polyester and that sort of thing. So I had some coral and I had some indigo. So I had a little play. The indigo, obviously, as you'd expect, didn't make a huge amount of difference. Well, it's a lot brighter. The blue is a lot brighter than it was on these 2 denim legs that I did. And I think it's probably disguised any stains well enough that I could use these now. So that's good. I just filled up 2 sinks in the kitchen. So I have 2 sinks side by side, and I put the hot water and salt in each one, and then put whatever I had of the indigo dye in one and the coral in the other. So I threw these 2 legs in the indigo, and I think that worked out pretty well. So that's going to go back on the pile over there. Because the dye bath was quite big, I also threw in a bit of unbleached canvas, but the results were very underwhelming. So I don't even think I'll even bother showing you that. So the coral turned out interesting. So these were blue jeans that are now a sort of coral with a blue undertone, is all I can say about that. And I think they look quite cool. And I'm thinking one of the things I'm sort of mulling over right now is to perhaps cut some squares out of the indigo and some squares out of the coral and put them together in like a 4-square patchwork look and make a bag out of that. Probably make a few bags out of that, because I've got 2 full legs of the indigo and that coral. So that would be fun. I think orange and blue, they do go well together, and I think I'm going to have a little bit of a play with those. I also have some like kid-sized ones, just kid-sized legs. Sounds good. I have some kid legs here. Anyhow, I promise you I have not been going out and accosting any kids for their legs. And these were really, really light blue. So they came out pretty basic coral. There wasn't a lot of blue in these at all, and so they actually dyed really well. And I'm surprised at how well the dye took, to be honest, because these days there's so much synthetic in jeans that you really wonder how well a cotton dye will do. But these did really well. So I was pleased with that. And now, of course, now that you can't see the stains, I can use them. They were clean before. They just had stuff in them that just wouldn't come out with a regular wash. And now they are ready to use. I have not made any progress with that bag yet. I have been doing other things. This bag, which was going to have grommets all the way around, still at the same stage it was when I showed it to you last time. So I think I'm going to have to, oh yes, some helpful person, I think that was Jerry, suggested trying a bit of clear nail polish on the back of the grommet. So I think I'm going to do that. We'll see how that works out. So the main thrust of yesterday's sewing was to finish the 4 tote bags that I had cut out. I basically made these over about 3 days, I think. I cut them out one evening, and then the next day I did some of the construction, and the third day I finished them. And you think they'd be so simple, and they are simple, but, you know, life commitments. I'm still trying to make sure my family gets fed. Do a little housework now and again, just so that it feels like it's under control and that sort of thing. But these are done. So after I had picked all those pockets apart the other day, I put a pocket onto the front of each of my denim bags. And I just used purple thread for all 4 of them. And I varied the handles. I had the webbing in this purple, pink and turquoise, which just happened to go perfectly with this lining because it has purple, pink and turquoise in it. Fantastic. Plus I had a lot of that lining cotton, so that was awesome. Just plain on the back. Yeah, I cut them 17 inches by 15, boxed the bottoms with 1.5 inch square. They're not super deep, but this was basically based on a bag I already had. What have I done with it? I'll show it to you. So this, which I think is gorgeous, you may have other ideas, but I made this a while back. During those COVID times, I got into sashiko stitching, and I've used different kinds of denim and some tie-dye fabric. I can't remember what base I used for this, but I laid the fabric over it. It was a bit like Boro, more like Boro, B-O-R-O, than sashiko, or a bit of both. The Boro is where you layer your fabrics, so it's a Japanese mending technique where you layer all these fabrics and stitch over them in a sort of fairly utilitarian way. My sashiko is very amateurish and not great, but I had a lot of fun making this. In fact, I made a couple. I'm pretty sure I gave one of these away to a friend as well. With this one, I put a magnetic snap in it and a tab on the side seam with a D-ring. Doesn't have a pocket in it. And it's perfect for my library books on those days when I actually go to the library, pick up more books or take some back. It is just the right size to that. So I made these new ones the exact same size because I knew it worked out well. So yes, that's the first one. Purple handle, pocket on the front. Pockets on the front are perfectly usable, but I did put a slip pocket inside as well. Another one with purple handles with an asymmetrical pocket. Asymmetric, asymmetrical. You decide. Which I think is rather cool. That was off a pair of jeans that a friend that I used to work with, gave me. And yeah, I put a pocket in here, and I made sure my label was in there. Glad I remembered that. So that was that one. And then this one is one with the turquoise webbing. I could have sewn the handles, but I've had this webbing in the stash for probably 3 years. And I have quite a bit of it, so I might as well use it up, right? So that's that one. And one with bright pink handles. Oh, I just love these colors. You can tell I bought that webbing in my favorite colors, right? I also bought it in lime. And then I used a sort of blacker pocket with the blacker denim. They probably didn't belong together in the first place, but I just happened to have them. And I took all the stitching out around the pocket. I didn't take any decorative stitching or any across the top. I left. But when I unpicked them from the jeans, obviously all the stitching around here was removed. So that's where I stitched. I just used the lines of the original stitching to stitch around a couple of layers, a couple of rows of stitching, and then multiple in reinforcing at the top. And yeah, my sewing machines had a bit of a workout this week. Hasn't been happy with some of the thicker, lumpier bits. I know that you can use a hump jumper, which I have, for going over thick seams and that, but it doesn't work with a walking foot because the walking foot is so big. It's got all that bulk at the back. And when you get to a lumpier bit, it sort of struggles up the hill and then falls down the other side. And then the big chunk at the back of the foot seems to catch. And sometimes my machine will miss a few stitches in the part where it's not pressing the fabric properly. And I had to go over it a couple of times. If I'd used my regular foot, I could have used the hump jumper to sort of raise the foot to the right level. But then I wouldn't have got the benefit of the even feed foot. Well, rather disappointingly, I got halfway through editing that segment, 30 minutes of film, and at 15 minutes, or maybe 13 minutes, my microphone decided to die, and I didn't check it to be sure it was on the whole way through. I'm usually pretty good at checking on a regular basis to make sure the microphone still has its little green light on. So that was disappointing. So now I'm going to have to say half of my stuff again. Wonderful. So at the time I got cut off, I was talking about the new discovery I had made on my sewing machine. Quite often when we want to have a little bit of passive entertainment, we put the TV on upstairs and put on YouTube. There's a lot of interesting stuff on there. My husband watches my account, and let's just say he's cluttered up my YouTube homepage with a lot of stuff that I wouldn't otherwise be watching. However, I do have a YouTube premium no ad thing thanks to son number 3, so that's exciting. So what we found last night was a video that was called "Which Beginner Sewing Machine is the Best One?" And the guy on this video had obviously run a survey and got lots of recommendations for what people thought was the best machine to start out at with a budget of $300 maximum. And he was talking about all the features. It came down to, it was a brother, a singer, and a Janome. And different machines had different features. And one of the things he was talking about was a pressure adjustment for your presser foot. And I thought, okay, I don't think my machine has that. But just to be sure, I took a look at my machine the next time I was sitting in front of it. And I do actually have one. I've had that machine nearly 4 years now, and I never knew it was there. And really, I should have noticed it, because when you're sitting at the machine and you're just looking above where the thread goes through and does the little zigzaggy thing, right on top, across the top, there's a dial sticking out with a number 6 on it. I thought, oh, I wonder what that is. So I wiggle it and I'm like, oh, it's got numbers on it. It goes from 1 to 6. So I looked in the manual. Turns out I do have a pressure adjustment dial or my presser foot. Now, I wouldn't have known what to use it for, but thankfully the manual did sort of give an idea of what it's for. And normally you're supposed to have it on 6 for just about anything that's regular sewing, which is good because mine was on 6. And for thinner fabrics or really stretchy fabrics, you can lighten the pressure. Oh, who knew? Learn something new every day, right? So that was interesting. Sometimes browsing random YouTube videos actually pays off. So I think before I got cut off, thank you microphone, I had talked to you about the denim totes, but I hadn't got to the fuzzy bags yet. So we'll talk about the fuzzy bags next. This is the reason for my sewing room being covered in fluff yesterday. I had made one of these sweaters out of a taupe and cream massive buffalo plaid chenille with a lovely white fluffy backing. And I had a couple of bits of it left, and I thought, okay, time to do something creative with it. So I made a fluffy pouch. And at first I was going to put a tab here for a D-ring, and I thought, oh, it's just going to be a struggle over the bulk in the seam. I don't think I will. I did do zipper tabs, and that does look nice and neat. I did not line it because why cover up that lovely fluffy lining? Did you just see the fluff that flew when I just showed you that zipper? I just opened the bag and whoosh, like a moth coming out of a wallet that never gets opened. You probably heard of that joke, right? That person's so mean that when they open their wallet, moths fly out. Oh God, she's rambling again. Okay, so I did my best with the zipper. I didn't have one that exactly matched, but I think it's good enough. And yeah, I really like that. It's so soft, this fabric. I just love it so much. And because there was still a little bit of that left over after that, I made a pyramid pouch. And I used just a white zipper because, yeah, I was struggling to get anything that would coordinate at all at this point. And I used a little piece of half zipper that was left over from another project to hold the D-ring and swivel hook. Not D-ring, swivel hook. So not lined again. And yeah, I think these are really fun. As I said before, not crazy about the way the zipper looks at the top because you can see it sort of bending over on itself. But such is the nature of an unlined pyramid bag. After I had finished a batch of totes, I wanted to do some other sort of unique bags, which is why I went over to the chenille. And then I had a look in my pile of fleecy things, and I found some pink book clay. I made a coat out of this. It was on sale. No, it was for sale at the fabric store I worked at for $50 a meter. And I wouldn't have made anything out of it at that price, but with the incentive scheme that they have running, you can make something, you can get the pattern for free, get the fabric and any other notions you need to make a project once a month, as long as it goes on display at the store for a month, and then you get to take it home. So I made this pink book clay coat, which actually came out surprisingly well, considering I am not a very professional garment sewer. Definitely amateurish. Let's just say when I make a garment, I'm always amazed when it turns out. So I had made this coat, and of course I had a few scraps left over from cutting out the pattern. So I decided to cut out a couple of rectangles and then fuse some interfacing on the back so it didn't stretch. And then I just free-handed a little bit of curving in at the top and curving around at the bottom. And then I just guessed where some darts should go to make a nice rounded bag. I just hand drew, without any sort of measuring, some darts on the back, on the interfacing, which was white and easy to write on. So I did the darts, and then I just repeated it for the lining pieces and the other pink boucle piece. And I thought, that works out. So I got everything together and it was all working great. Put a little slip pocket on the lining, remembered my label. Had it all put together. Got to the stage where I had done a fancy sort of handle, which I have now tossed in the bin because this is the second time I'm talking about this now. Hold on. This was my original handle. And I thought it would be great to have a narrower at the top part and then wider at the sides, and it would slot into the side seams and look kind of cool. Except it didn't, because I made a right mess of it. I kind of got the idea from this video by So Nonny. I think she has a fairly new YouTube channel. She doesn't have a lot of videos up yet, but she likes to make bags. And she had made a patchwork bag not long ago where she had done a handle where it went from wider to narrower. And I thought she had done it so that this part was narrower and this part was wider. I didn't go back to check because, you know, that would be the sensible thing to do. So I just thought, I'll do it this way. I'll just freehand it, approximate length. Yeah, that's fine. Cut out a rectangle and then just sort of cut a curve in it, you know, how one does. And it looked lovely until I tried sewing it into the bag, and then it looked like C-R-A-P. I think one of the main problems being that because the bag curves in and there's a lot of stuff going on here, when the pattern pieces meet on the side seam, they make a little bit of a V shape. And so when you're trying to attach something that's straight across to a V shape, yeah, let's just say it was a mess. So I had to unpick everything. It took me ages to unpick it all. What I ended up doing when I was sick of it down here, I took it upstairs with me, and I was in the kitchen waiting for something to cook or something to heat up, and I was like, pick. And eventually it got done. Eventually I separated the lining from the outer bag. Today when I came back down, I ironed the top of the lining where all the stitches had been ripped out and crossed my fingers that it would be okay. And I redid the handle. So in the end, I opted for a handle that was narrower and less thick. I cut the book layout 2 inches wide, and then I just ran double-sided tape down each side and folded them into the middle. And then I put this pink bias binding on top of this, on top of where I had the raw edges meeting. I would prefer to have had ribbon to do that, but I didn't have a ribbon that was wide enough or the right color. So yeah, lots of reddish pink and various pinks kind of clashing in this project, but oh well. So yeah, after I had used the double-sided tape to put the bias binding on there, I just ran a couple of lines of stitching really close to either side of it, and it worked out so much better. So I put a rather cool button on it. I have some buttons like this in blue and green as well, and they just, depending on the light, the angle, you can see the color in them. They're really pretty. And I just used a bit of black cord. That was half of what I had of the black cord. I only had maybe 8 inches of it, and I used half of it for the button loop. And then the fabric lining, so pretty. And I know it doesn't exactly match, but we're not going to worry about that, are we? So there's the lining, and it has the label on it and a little slip pocket in there. So in the end, I got something saleable. The good thing about the boucle is it hides your stitches and also hides the fact that you've had to rip out stitches and re-sew. Mr. Stitches is back from his treatment today, so we are going to go out for a little walk, and then I'm going to make a simple dinner, and I'm hoping to get more crochet done this evening. I have, believe it or not, a tooth in progress. I'm crocheting a molar for my orthodontist for when he takes my braces off next week. And I'm pleased with how it's turning out, actually, because I picked a pattern from Ravelry and had no idea what size it was going to come out. And so far, I've done the body of the tooth and 2 of the roots, and it's going to be a decent size. So I'm pleased with that. So that's my plan for the rest of the day. Walk, eat, crochet. That sounds like a pretty good plan. So the part you're going to see next is some edited footage from my activities this morning. I went round to my friend's house and we attempted to wax cloth. One of my sons said I should post a reel to social media talking about me waxing and implying that there was more to it than waxing cloth. I said, yes, I definitely should do that, but I probably won't. That would just be weird. Anyway, you've probably heard of those beeswax cloths, right? Well, the vegan version of that is candelilla wax. You use candelilla, jojoba oil, and what's the other thing? Pine resin. So it's a plant-based wax rather than beeswax. So my friend had bought some of it months ago because we were going to do a group fun activity where we all brought some fabric and we ended up waxing it to make food wraps. Well, it just turned out to be me and her today because everyone else was sick or uninterested or whatever. And so it was a nice morning. Had lots of Yorkshire tea and some Bara Brith, which I had baked and taken over there. If you don't know what Bara Brith is, I'll link to a recipe. I use Gaz Oakley's recipe, and I will do my best to remember to put the link in the description box for that. And we painted wax on fabric. So I'll let you see how it panned out. But good news, I learned how to do a voiceover on a segment of video. I took all the clips from this morning, put them in a separate little video, muted all the sound off there, and figured out how to do a voiceover. So I'm very excited about that. Okay, so I'll let you watch the video, and then I'll come back afterwards and finish everything up. So this is the mixture. It has candelilla wax, pine resin, and jojoba oil. And I think we made a mistake with this because we left the paintbrush in as it was heating and all the pine resin stuck itself to the paintbrush. This is the view from my friend's house. Oh, wow, it's a beautiful location. Look at that lake view. This is her gorgeous, friendly, soft, lovable dog who's getting a bit old and arthritic-y now. We used a couple of throwaway fabric pieces to test it out at first. My friend's using a beeswax mixture and I'm using the candelilla because it's animal product free. So we just painted the stuff on both sides and ironed it rather than put it in the oven. Unfortunately, mine was really gloopy because of the pine resin sticking to the brush and not really mixing in. There were some really yellow, icky bits, icky streaks that didn't spread. The oil is supposed to soak into the fabric, but unfortunately, because it wasn't mixed very well, it didn't do what it was supposed to do. There's a lot of different ways of doing this online, a lot of different mixtures that people use and recommend. The proportions are a little different depending on whether you use the candelilla wax or the beeswax. So there's me ironing my first test piece. It wasn't too bad. Pretty messy job. I'm doing the scrunch test. Ideally, when you scrunch up a piece of waxed cloth, it stays scrunched and it doesn't flake. So I took my courage with both hands and decided to use one of my good pieces of fabric. But yeah, that yellow is just not supposed to look like that. It really isn't. It's too sticky. Pine resin is supposed to make it sticky, but throughout, not just in places. Ever optimistic, I went along and made that piece. And I have to say, it just looked really bad. And it didn't really do what it was supposed to. We did the will it cling to the bowl test, hence the bowl in the background. And we did the scrunch test. And unfortunately, that one just flaked because the mixture wasn't right. This one that my friend did, about her second or third attempt, I'm not sure. This one worked out pretty well. This one looks how it's supposed to look. And of course, because she's into rats, as you can see, she loves rat fabric. She runs a rat rescue. She has a lot of her own rats, plus if anyone ever needs rescuing or adopting out, she does that and works in conjunction with a lot of other rat rescues around North America. Whatever you may think about rats, hers are super adorable. Even the white ones with the red eyes. As you can see, that wasn't the most successful venture ever done. But hey, we had a good time. And I don't know if I'd bother trying it again. The supplies aren't exactly cheap, and fabric isn't cheap either. And I don't really want to try again and have it not work out and throw it all away. So I think we'll call that done and dusted and probably never to be repeated. So I'm just going to finish up this vlog with a couple of things. I'll just show you the gift I made for my orthodontist because the braces are coming off next week, and I wanted to give him and the team a gift to say thank you. What do you think of this? It's a giant molar. I'm so happy that this came out so big. This is the size, it's almost as big as my hand. And I'm so glad it didn't just come out like super teeny, because then I'd probably wanted to make a whole family of them. So it came out great. I put the safety eyes in, I gave her some eyelashes and a little flower. So yeah, I'm calling it a she. And I plan to just attach a little thank you tag to it to say, thanks to the team for making my dreams come true. Hope they like it. I think they will. When I went out this morning, it's really warm today. I went out this morning and I took my coat and I grabbed some fingerless mitts from the shelf and went out and instantly had to take them all off because it was so warm outside. But the fingerless mitts I found when I was rummaging around on the shelf this morning, which has all my cowls, hats, scarves, mitts, you name it, I found these. I just love these. I have a pattern that's on my blog, and also I think I put it on Ravelry. And I think I called them Elements Armwarmers. And I think that's this pattern. But the yarn is scapious, stone washed and river washed. Yes, it was that box of minis. I had one of those gorgeous boxes of all the tiny little 20-gram balls, I think they were. Like 100 shades, something like that. And I had the whole range, and for a long time I didn't know what to make. And I ended up making a sweater and making these and some other things. And I had forgotten these were even up there on the shelf. But now I'm reminded of how gorgeous the colours are in that. So I was kind of sad when it was too warm to wear them. I haven't worn them all winter. And finally, a little peek at Mr. Stitch's adventure scarf, just to let you see how it's progressing. We won't look too closely at the edge where I've done all the colour changes because, you know, not the neatest. This is the length of it now. What's that, about 15 inches long maybe? Yeah, love the colours. I've said it before, love the yarn, love the colours. And I'm all up to date, up to yesterday anyway. So he just has 7 more radiations left and 1 chemo left. And then after that, I'll probably be just doing a lot of blue until we figure out what to do for when he gets his all clear in like 2-3 months' time, whenever it is. I guess he'll have another scan, so there'll be another stripe of something in there for a scan, and then maybe a big chunk of gold at the end for the happy days. I think that's all I've got to say now. I've shown you everything I've made so far. I'm up in my living room because it's so warm and sunny up here that I didn't want to go downstairs in my sewing room because it's kind of gloomy and chilly down there. When the sun is shining in up here, it's tempting to just do like a cat does and curl up in a pool of sunshine and enjoy it. That's pretty much what I did when I had my lunch smoothie. I just sat in the sunshine and didn't want to move. Okay, so that's everything for now. Hope you had as much fun as I did. And I'll see you again very soon. Thanks very much for watching.